my channel. As promised, I'm going to show you how I make my pants with pockets using only an elastic waistband. It's super simple to follow, no special equipment required. I finish all my seams using a French seam, so if you're interested in this simple tutorial, keep on watching. Alright, let me start out by explaining that I've already made my festive pants. I tried out the pattern yesterday just to make sure that everything was good. I knew exactly what I needed to give instruction on, what I needed to kind of clean up a little bit, because sometimes when I'm sewing it can get hectic and there's random alterations being made. So I wanted to make this video as easy to follow as possible. So just in practice, I made these yesterday. They're super comfy. I worked late into the night, way later than I probably should have, but I wanted this video to go out this week. So again, I'll be using this fabric in my video today for you. Now let's talk materials needed. You're gonna wanna have an automatic zigzag stitch sewing machine. That's just like a standard, typically most sewing machines come with, that's an aeroplane. Okay, we're good. So most sewing machines come with an automatic zigzag stitch. That will be necessary for some of the seams we're gonna be sewing up. You're also gonna want at least 2 3/4 yards of fabric. I chose a cozy flannel fabric. It's a little bit thicker than I typically use for these pants. I went ahead and got 2.5 yards of fabric because I wanted a little extra to make a matching scrunchie, and then also a pair of pants for my daughter because we like to match. I also have this sports elastic for the waistband. This is really nice. You're gonna wanna make sure that there's good stretch on it. You don't want something too stiff, because I've noticed that when I use elastic that is very stiff, it cuts into your side when you're wearing them. So make sure whatever elastic you grab is very, very stretchy. Then you're gonna want some sort of chalk or water erasable marker. I prefer the chalk because you can kind of just rub it off with your finger opposed to having to use water to erase the pen that you use for your clothing. So go ahead and grab something to do markings with. And then you're gonna want some good fabric scissors. If you use regular scissors, it's not the end of the world, but just know that the cuts won't be as clean. So fabric scissors are good for exact lines. Then to insert your elastic, you're gonna wanna use a safety pin. I just kind of have like a medium-sized one. Oh, also just your standard tape measure will be really good. This way we can double check that our measurements are lining up. You're going to want some pins. This is just going to be able to hold the fabric in place, as well as an iron and an ironing board. Ironing your clothes as you make them makes for a very clean finish, so I would recommend using an iron. If you don't have one, it's not the end of the world. I've made clothes without one. That is it for the supplies. Now let's get into the video. First, we're going to want to cut out our pattern. I'm folding my fabric in half, that way I can have identical pieces for the front panels and the back panels. I drafted my pattern on some Christmas paper a couple years back, and the most important measurement you'll take is for the hips. This is because we want our waist to be the same width as the hip measurement in order for us to be able to pull our pants over our hips, and the elastic that we add to the waistband will help cinch it to be the actual waist measurement when we're finished. Now I'm going to use my measuring tape to make sure both leg widths are the same, and I'm also going to trim off some of the pattern because I don't want my leg width to be super wide. I'm going to tailor them down to have a slimmer fit. The next 4 pattern pieces I'm going to cut out are going to be identical pocket pieces. So I just kind of measure using my hand because you want your hand to be able to fit inside the pocket. Sometimes I'll even grab my phone and just make sure that my phone will fit in the pocket as well. The best way I can describe the shape of a pocket piece is kind of like an oval with a tail on the side. Once you've cut that shape out, you're going to go ahead and split it right down the middle so we have 4 pieces. Now we're ready to fold our pattern pieces and set them aside. We still need to cut out a waistband, but we'll do that once we've sewn together the pants and we'll remeasure. Sorry for the shaky video, the zigzag stitch was moving the table, but basically I put a zigzag stitch around all 4 of the pocket pieces. This is going to help prevent fraying because the zigzag stitch, as you can see, locks in all raw edges. Next, I'm going to line up the pocket pieces to the front panels, and I'm going to straight stitch the opening with right sides together, and then I'm going to sew wrong sides together for the front of the pants. So for French seam, you want to sew wrong sides together first, then you're going to cut off all excess fabric on the edge, being very careful not to snip the actual stitches we had just made. Then, to finish off the seam, we are going to iron down right sides together and pin them in place to then cover all the raw edges. After you've done that, you'll sew it together and you'll have a perfect French seam. Once you've finished sewing the 2 front pieces together, you're going to just repeat those steps for the back. I like to use the front as a guide when pinning the back pocket on. That way, when we go to sew together both the back and the front, those pockets are going to line up perfectly. Now we're ready to sew the front and the back panels together. Our pants should start to look like pants now rather than just a bunch of pattern pieces. I am pinning down wrong sides together so I can continue making that French seam. And it's important to know that when you're sewing the wrong sides together, when you get to the pocket part, you're not going to want to sew over the opening. So when you get to that line where we had previously stitched the pockets on, you're just going to stop right there and then pick it up on the other. So let's get right into making the waistband. For the length, I'm going to measure the front and back of our pants. I'm going to add a 1/2 inch to that for seam allowance, and then I'm going to draw out the waistband length and give it a 4-inch width. Now we're going to iron down the waistband in half as a guideline, and you'll pin that onto the waist with right sides together, then sew it down. Waistband using the stitch in the ditch method. That's when you sew the backing on through the front in an existing seam. This is going to make sure that your stitches are invisible, but it is still securing the back to the waistband. Before you finish this off, you're going to want to leave about an inch's worth of waistband open. That way we'll have a place to feed the elastic through. Next, it's time to cut the elastic. I just stretch it around my waist until it feels like it is at a comfortable tension. Okay, for this next part, you're going to want your safety pin, and you're just going to attach it to one end of your elastic, like this. I'm going to close it up. Then where we left our small opening, let's see, on the back right here, you're going to feed your elastic through, and then feel for that that safety pin, and you're just gonna pull it through, and it's gonna get bunchy, and you don't want your elastic to go through completely. So when you get to the end, you're gonna want to hold on to that elastic, and yeah, you're just gonna do this until you get to the end. Now is a great time to try on the pants before we lock in the waistband. Now that we've tried them on and we like the fit of the elastic, I'm gonna lock it in with a zigzag stitch, that way it won't come undone. And then I'm going to stitch in the ditch the space that we left for the elastic. I wanted to show you up close what the outside of the waistband looks like using stitch in the ditch. As you can see, I made a couple of mistakes, but the elastic is very forgiving. We are finally nearing the end. Now all that's left to do is the hem. I just like to look in a mirror and roll up the pant legs and try to get them as even as possible. Once I like the length, I'll go ahead and iron it down. Then I'm going to double roll the hem, that way there are no raw edges showing. And I'm just going to double check that both pant legs are as even as possible. That way I don't have one shorter than the other. Once you're sure you like the length, go ahead and iron it down, and then straight stitch all the way around the hem. That is going to wrap up my tutorial on how I make my elastic waistband pants. Hopefully it was enjoyable for you. I really love making these videos, and if you give this tutorial a go, please tag me in it so I can see what you've come up with. If you enjoyed today's video, please like and subscribe to my channel. I'll be putting out more tutorials in the future. I will see you all in the next one. Bye!